long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Trey Orndorff, a political scientist at Oklahoma Christian University, and I'm joined by Professor of Law at Chase Law School, Ken Katkin. Ken, welcome back to our ongoing Politics Guys midweek supporters show, where, at least for you and myself, we cover the U.S. Constitution.
It's great to be back.
And it's great, last time we got to finish up the Bill of Rights, which finishes up the 10th Amendment. And so now we're going to start getting into the post-Bill of Rights amendments. And so these kind of trickle out over time. We don't have them in these kind of big batches anymore. And the first one that we're going to take up is the 11th Amendment. And what we always do is we start with just the text of the amendment, and that's what I'll read. And then we'll really try to get into the cases and the issues that arise from those amendments. And the first few we're going to have some time on. And so the 11th Amendment says, quote, "The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state." And so, again, when I teach, general classes, Ken, the 11th Amendment isn't one we generally get into too rapidly because it's a little bit confusing at first. But in general, what the Supreme Court has kind of ruled is that it means that that citizens of one state could in fact sue other states in federal court. So that's in Chisholm versus Georgia, one of kind of the earlier cases. Kind of walk us through what this means, because this is maybe one of the more technical ones we've encountered yet.
Well, Chisholm is actually a pre-11th Amendment case, and then the 11th Amendment is ratified for the purpose of overruling Chisholm. So I will talk about the Chisholm case for sure.
Oh, that's right, because then you get to Hans versus Louisiana, which is the post-11th Amendment.
Right,
even I get enough.
So it's easiest to understand the 11th Amendment by starting with the Chisholm case. So and for that, we may have to actually ask our listeners to put their thinking caps or their memory caps on and remember a little bit about Article 3 of the Constitution, which we talked about many shows back. But it's the interpretation of Article 3, Section 2 in the Chisholm case that the public ends up rejecting and adopting the 11th Amendment. So Chisholm is a case back in that quaint old world of the framers when there used to be kind of mom and pop family businesses that were defense contractors, when defense contracting was a mom and pop family business. And so
it's even hard to imagine that, but yes.
Yes. And so and I think if people remember their American history well enough, they'll know that when the colonies waged the Revolutionary War against England, our War of Independence, we didn't yet have any federal mechanism for funding that war effort. So George Washington had the Continental Army that was authorized by the Continental Congress under the Articles of Association. But there was no money to be appropriated. The Continental Congress had no money and could appropriate no money to that effort. So all of the war effort really proceeded by a combination of kind of contributions from the colonial governments, contributions from private donors, contributions from foreign friends like France. Just wherever money could come from, it came from. It was a very ad hoc kind of way of organizing a war effort. And similarly, a lot of the munitions and supplies that that George Washington's soldiers needed, a lot of that was financed on IOUs, that you'd have these family defense contracting businesses that made, guns or bullets or whatever, boots sometimes. And George Washington would go to them and say, look, I don't have any money to pay for this stuff, but if you're patriotic, you'll loan it to us, and I'll write you an IOU. And after the war is won and we set up a new government of a new United States of America, they'll pay the bills, or maybe the state will pay the bills. Well, that was sort of the background here. So the Chisholm brothers were a defense contracting firm. They made a lot of equipment which they actually their customer was the colonial government of Georgia. So the colonial government of Georgia said to the Chisholm brothers, we want to send some Georgia regiments to help George Washington. We want to arm them up and equip them and give them uniforms and guns, and we got no money to pay for that. So how about you sell us that stuff on credit, and we'll pay you later. And so the Chisholm brothers took IOUs from the colonial government of Georgia in order to supply supplies to the Georgia regiment that joined George Washington's army. Well, later, as we know, thankfully, the war effort succeeds. The Revolutionary War is a success. The United States government is established. The colonial government of Georgia is replaced by a state government of Georgia under a state constitution. And the Chisholm brothers patiently keep sending bills to that Georgia government and say, hey, remember when we sold you all these military supplies on consignment? The bill is due. It's time to pay up. The war is won. How about paying? And Georgia keeps responding to them and saying, yeah, we're going to pay you. We're just still, we're a new state. We're not on good fiscal footing. We don't have the money.
The checks in the mail.
Yeah, they never paid, and they kept promising to pay. So finally, the Chisholm brothers start looking at the new U.S. Constitution, which by then has been ratified, and they see that in Article 1, Section 3, where the judicial power of the United States is defined, it says that the judicial power, Article 1, Section 3, Clause 2. I'm sorry, Article 3. Blah, I'm tripping over my tongue. Article 3, Section 2. Article 3, Section 2 says the judicial power of the United States shall extend to cases between a state and citizens of another state. That's one of the categories of one of the 9 categories of federal jurisdiction. So the Chisholm brothers say that's perfect because Georgia is a state and we actually live in South Carolina, so we are citizens of another state, and so we can invoke the judicial power of the new federal courts, and we can sue the state of Georgia, a state, and try to get our bills paid. So that's what the Chisholm versus Georgia case is. So the Chisholm brothers go to federal court in South Carolina, and they sue the state of Georgia on the unpaid bills from the Revolutionary War and say, we've got all these IOUs, the state has to pay up. And the federal court says, yep, that's right. We have jurisdiction over this case because this is a suit between a state and citizens of another state. And Article 3, Section 2 says that the judicial power does extend to such cases. So we're going to exercise jurisdiction, and it looks like the IOUs are valid, and it looks like the bills were never paid. So we're entering judgment in favor of the Chisholm brothers, and Georgia has to pay up. And if they don't pay up, we'll send some U.S. Marshals out there to repo some government property, and we'll enforce the judgment. So
I'm sorry to say, but that ends the ad-supported preview of the Midweek's Politics Guys show. So if you'd like to get the full show, you're going to need to become a supporter of the Politics Guys. And it couldn't be easier to do. Just head to patreon.com/politicsguys. That's right, patreon.com/politicsguys, where you can become a supporter and get the rest of the bonus show. You can support the Politics Guys in a variety of ways, though. There's Venmo, where we're at Politics Guys. You can also support the show through PayPal. All of those support links are available in the show notes, as well as at politicsguys.com/support. And don't forget, you get more than just the ad-free version of this show and this show. You get the ad-free version of our weekend show. You get access to things like Discord and so much more. To see all of that, again, head to patreon.com/politicsguys and become a supporters of the Politics Guys. Now, if you'd like to get the midweek show, but you're just not in a position financially right now to support the podcast, we get that. Just email us at mail@politicsguys.com and we can get things set up. Whether you're a supporter or not, we would really appreciate it if you could subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on the podcast app of your choice. Now, of course, you might have already done that. And if you have, please share all of our episodes with your friends, family, and other people on your social media accounts. If you've got a question, comment, correction, gripe, or anything else you'd like to share with us at the Guys, email us at mail@politicsguys.com. We're also on Facebook and X, and you guessed it, you can find those links in the show notes. Now, the individuals who really make this show happen, and you can become one of them if you wish, if you head to patreon.com/politicsguys, are the executive producers. And so I want to mention them by name. The executive producers of the Politics Guys are Bruce Johnson, Wilma Marino, Daniel Toe, Ryan Beasley, and Don Oglesby. We'll be back with a new full episode this weekend. I hope you'll join us then.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,